Hello, this is the fourth in a series of videos I'm making on an old paper of mine, a Baha'i view of human rights, this one dealing with the topic of human equality. The paper itself was first presented at an International Symposium on the conception of human rights held under the aegis of the International Sociological Association in Dubrovnik back in 1985. I've lightly edited it for publication. It's recently been published in a collection of essays put together by Mikhail Sergeev on religion and science in the globalized world. I'll give the details in the notes below. For ease of recording, I've divided the paper up into 7 separate videos, and we've now reached the fourth one on the topic of human equality. This covers 3 topics: gender equality, gender complementarity and differences, and unity in diversity. To begin with the principle of the unity and oneness of the human race, this is regarded by Baha'is as the pivotal teaching of their religion. As a social principle, it implies both the radical restructuring of global society and basic changes in human attitudes. A crucial part of this is the concept of gender equality. According to the Baha'i teachings, men and women were created equally in the image of God, that is, both were endowed with spiritual qualities and enabled to reflect the attributes of God. Both possessed all the potentialities of intelligence, virtue, and human prowess. In the sight of God, both were equal, and no distinction was to be made between them. That women have generally been prevented from attaining their full potential was to be attributed to their lack of education and to the conditions of oppression under which so many of them lived. The injustice of that situation had to change, a point stressed repeatedly by Abdu'l-Baha. In the 20th century of light, his term, the potentialities for women's advancement had become manifest, and the forces for change had thus acquired momentum. The attainment of gender equality is a vital necessity for the advancement of the whole human race. Social and political progress for both men and women depends on the acceptance and realization of equality between them. Males and females have been created by God as complementary parts of human society. If one part was wronged and oppressed and unable thus to develop its perfections, then the progress of human society as a whole was made defective and unstable. If men and women were compared to the 2 wings of a bird, then the bird of humanity could not wing its way to heights of real attainment unless both wings were equivalent in strength. Without gender equality, neither international peace nor the unity and oneness of the human race could be attained. The attainment of gender equality required changes in both attitudes and the social opportunities available to women. Men had to abandon their attitude of superiority towards women. Attitudes of male superiority expressed the ignorance of an earlier age, when women were regarded as demonic or as inferior to men in mental capacities. In the modern age, these were harmful superstitions, unworthy of human intelligence. As long as such attitudes persisted, however, they would continue to depress the ambitions and advancement of women. Women's potentialities were great, but still largely unrealized. To inspire people with hope and ambition, and hence to further their capacity for advancement, it was necessary to encourage them and assure them as to their capacities. If they were told that they were weaker or inferior, this would denude them of hope and hence handicap their progress. It was necessary to declare the equality or even the superiority of the capacities of women to men, for thus would their susceptibilities for advancement increase. Women themselves should also make such progress as to force men to recognize their equality. The standard and status of the two sexes had to become equal, not only in the West, where the idea of gender equality had at least become well established, but also throughout the world. In this regard, universal suffrage was again vital. The electoral and political rights of men and women should be the same. More fundamentally, both sexes needed to gain equal access to education. Education would establish women's equality with men. There should be no difference in the education of the two sexes. Both should follow the same course of study and enjoy the same educational opportunities. Similarly, in social, political, and economic affairs, they should be equal. All departments of life, other than that of the military, which I'll talk about in a moment, should be open to them both. The economic structure of society should be readjusted so as to permit this equality, as well as to enable all human beings to live in the greatest happiness according to their respective degrees of attainment. This said, according to the Baha'i view, the essential equality of the sexes did not mean that they were identical. This was most clearly seen in the social role of motherhood, itself based on a basic biological difference between women and men. The mother bore a particular importance in the initial care of her children, and whilst both parents shared the responsibility of ensuring that their children were educated, it was the mother who acted as their children's first teacher. It was therefore vitally important that girls, as potential mothers of the future, receive a good education. Indeed, if parents were forced by circumstances to give educational priority to some of their children over others, because of lack of funds, for example, then they should favour their daughters over their sons. If the mother was illiterate and ignorant, then her children were likely to be similarly deficient. She bore the primary responsibility in ensuring the material and spiritual welfare and advancement of her children, and her own education, wisdom, and morality would have a significant impact on them. As a corollary of this vital role of motherhood, the husband had a duty to support his wife and to provide for and protect his family. This might appear to be an endorsement of traditional parental roles, but the roles were not exclusive. Both parents had a duty to care for their children, and both were potentially breadwinners. Nor had either any right to dominate the other, and women certainly should never be prisoners of the household. Abdu'l-Baha thought that in certain respects women were temperamentally superior to men, being more liable to be compassionate, tender-hearted, spiritually receptive, intuitive, and attuned to the necessities of life. He regarded these, quotes, female qualities as necessary characteristics in the new age promised in the Baha'i writings. They provided a balance to the hitherto dominant, quotes, male qualities of force and aggression. Thus, the attainment of gender equality would not only foster the advancement of women and the proper complementarity between the two sexes, but it would lead to a more even balance between the masculine and feminine elements of civilization. In this regard, women were destined to play the leading role in the work of peacemaking. The feminine qualities of compassion and tender-heartedness were necessary in the attainment of peace, and those who had mothered children would not readily sacrifice them on the battlefield. When women participated fully and equally with men in law and politics, war would cease, according to Abdu'l-Baha. A distinction in gender roles should be drawn here, for whilst it was entirely possible to train women to be men's equals in what he termed the military science of slaughter, it was wrong to do so. Now let's move on to the concept of unity and diversity. For Baha'is, all of humanity constitutes a single race. Whilst cultural diversity could be regarded positively as a defense against bland uniformity, national, ethnic, and racial differences are regarded as man-made. creations of human thought. They're not part of God's creation. Nor did God respect people differently based on the color of their skin. All human beings were created as the leaves of one tree and the drops of one ocean. The whole earth was but one country, and all humankind its citizens. No one should regard themselves as superior on the basis of their race, religion, or nationality. It was both urgently necessary to overcome the prejudices of the past and wrong to discriminate against others on the basis of racial, religious, or national differences, unless special consideration needed to be given to those who had been oppressed because of their minority status. Each individual should strive to rid themselves of prejudice against others, associating with the followers of all religions with joy and radiance, and showing kindness to those of other races and nationalities. No barriers should exist between people because of race. In those societies in which racial divisions were a major source of confrontation, the work of reconciliation was vital, lest, as in the case of the United States, enmity should increase and lead to hardship and bloodshed. It was useful to have meetings devoted to the subject of interracial amity. Interracial marriage was a positive force in the abolition of differences. The exhortation given to the North American Baha'is may doubtless also be taken as of general applicability here, that members of the dominant race should abandon even the least sense of superiority and correct any tendency towards patronizing condescension, whilst those of the oppressed race should be ready to forget the past and overcome their suspicions. Neither race should think that the solution of so vast a problem was a matter that exclusively concerned the other. There would be no easy or immediate solution, but the problem could be solved, requiring great tact, love, wisdom, and effort. So many thanks to you for listening, and particular thanks to my patrons for their kind support and encouragement. Without them, I wouldn't be able to make these videos. You're very welcome to support my channel if you should so wish. Please do like, comment, and share on the videos. It really does help. Subscribe if you want to be notified of future videos. I'll give a Patreon link below in case you want to provide practical support. Next week, we'll talk about the concept of international order. Have a good day.